So my secret is about karma. Many years ago, when I was a freshman in college, I was having kind of a hard time adjusting to my studies because the freedom was just amazing. And my grades were far from my best. I was doing particularly poorly in my Sociology 101 class. It was a giant class, like 200 people, so kind of easy to just have my friend take the final exam for me. Worst decision I ever made in my life. To top it off, my friend actually failed the exam, so I was shocked, but probably deserved that. And then from there on out, I walked the straight and narrow. I earned every grade I got after that on my own, but definitely got what I deserved, and that's my secret.
This episode contains adult language and themes.
I didn't know how to tell the truth, so I just ripped it off like a Band-Aid.
Today, my guest takes us on a roller coaster ride through two different lives she's cultivated, and she'll tell us what happens when those two worlds intersect. I'm ready.
Oh my gosh, you're not ready.
Okay.
Ben, you think you're ready, but you're not ready.
It's a story of highs.
I'm just going to do this. If I want to wear a super skin-tight dress and 8-inch heels, I'm going to do it.
Heck yeah. And lows.
And then I was just like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Right.
What did I do? What did I do?
Oh my. Strap in for an epic journey, one that's open to all of us.
I've never told anybody this secret, and I'm really afraid of being judged by people for it.
Today, The Secret Room presents It's Just Pixels.
Hi, my name is Meredith, and my secret is that I spent close to a decade obsessed with living an alternate life that I hid from everyone close to me. I feel a burning desire to share this secret, Ben. Let's talk.
I'm Ben Ham. Meredith, welcome to The Secret Room.
Thank you, Ben. I'm glad to be here, but also a little bit nervous.
I totally understand, and I hope that washes away really quickly.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Yeah,
I hope so too.
We have so much to talk about.
Oh my gosh. I guess we do.
I am so enthralled. You're about to open up a whole world that most of us don't know anything about. And you are going to take us on a journey.
Oh man.
Before we crack that door open, I want to know a little bit about you first. Can you tell me a little bit about what your life was like in the time before Secret?
And the time before Secret, BS, before Secret. Let's see. I was living in a large eastern city on the eastern coast of the United States. I was a graduate student. I was engaged to be married. And I was kind of living your kind of average, 20-something life in a big city. I had a lot of friends. I went to a lot of concerts and parties. I was a very social person. Kind of did, the normal stuff that a 20-something person was doing.
When your secret came along, was it a surprise to you? Or is it something that you feel you were kind of predisposed to being attracted to?
That's a tough, I guess I have two answers to that question. On the one hand, no, I was not predisposed to that. I was not really somebody who was into video games. I didn't spend a lot of time on the internet or on computers necessarily, just as much as most people were those days, I would say. But the reason I would say yes, I was maybe a little bit inclined or predisposed to it is because one of the things I think is unique about me is that I've met almost everyone I've ever dated on the internet. I'm kind of exactly the right age for that to have happened. When I was in high school, my friends and I would go on America Online, AOL, and we would go in chat rooms and, 5 of us would be crowded around one computer talking to boys who were probably also crowded around their computers with their friends. That is how I met my very first boyfriend when I went off to college. We met in a chat room for our college. And I also met my fiance on the internet. So in that sense, I was pretty comfortable with the internet, but I was not a gamer by any stretch.
But you were primed.
Yeah, I guess in the way I was primed.
You were a good candidate.
I guess I don't know how I feel about that,
Right.
but I guess it's true.
So you had a lot of friends. You did a lot of regular things. You were living your life, going to graduate school, and you were engaged to be married.
Yes, I was engaged to be married, and my wedding was scheduled for the summer of 2007.
What was your relationship like with your fiance?
I would say that when we got together, I sort of absorbed Brian into my social life. And Brian was also a graduate student. And then he finished graduate school and got a job, and I was still in graduate school. He would work really long hours. He had a very long commute, and he had a very intense job. So he was often working really long hours, and I was often at home, kind of being in school and hanging out by myself, waiting for him to come home.
Got it. Okay. So you had a little time to burn on your own.
I had a lot of time to burn on my own, a lot of time.
Somewhere along the way, your secret came calling. Can you tell me how you first caught wind of it?
It was 2006 or 2007. There's a lot of conversation that's happening kind of in the media and just among, people I knew about virtual worlds. I had a couple of friends who were gamers, and I had a couple of friends who were artists. And, those artists were always interested in kind of the new thing that was happening, or trying to figure out kind of new media to mess around in or to experiment with. And so it was through a very good friend of mine, and I'll call that friend Nick, that I first learned about my secret. And when Nick told me about it, we both just thought it was like the weirdest and the most incomprehensible thing we could imagine. We just could not wrap our minds around what it was or what people did with it, but it sounded very curious and interesting. So we would have these conversations about how we were both going to kind of join this space and just kind of use it to fuck around, I guess. We just had these kind of jokes, and we just wanted to see kind of what it was all about. That's how I first learned about it and kind of got interested in it, almost on a lark. Not a joke, but just an experiment that we were going to try out together, and we were going to do it for a few days or at the same time and kind of see what it was. He was very much a person who was always getting into trouble and trying out different things and just kind of seeing what life was about. So I was like, sure, that sounds fun. Let's do that.
Wow. Okay. And so, we should just say what this is, I guess. So you and Nick were planning to enter the virtual world known as Second Life together.
Yeah, so Nick and I got this idea that we would just see what Second Life was. At the time, there was a lot of news coverage of Second Life about stores going in and schools and people living in there as animals. And we were just like, what does any of this mean? We couldn't even understand it. So we were like, yeah, we're going to go in. We're going to see what all these weird people are doing. We're going to mess around with them, and it's going to be funny. And then, we'll stop doing it. Maybe a week or something. It was just going to be a thing that we did on a weekend. I
don't know a lot about Second Life, but I did a little internet research to prepare for the interview. And so tell me if I've got this right. You'd call it an online virtual world.
Yeah.
And it's run by a company in San Francisco since 2003, and it has about 1 million regular users. So there's a lot of people in there.
Yeah, I would say that when I joined Second Life, it was a little bit on the decline. It had kind of, I would say it sort of peaked in popularity in 2004, 2005, maybe 2006. And then it got a lot of mainstream news coverage, and then it was kind of a little on the wane. It was still very popular, though, and there were still a lot of people who went in it every day, and there still are a lot of people who go in it every day, for sure.
But it's not a game, because there's no conflict, there's no objective. You just get in there and you live and you have experiences.
Yeah, there are gamified parts to it.
Yeah, so what happens in Second Life?
Anything you can imagine happens in Second Life. So I can talk a little bit about what happens when you go in and you're a newbie or a noob.
Do you remember when you set up your account, did you do it with Nick or did you do it solo?
No, we didn't actually end up doing it together. It's just like Nick put the idea in my head that this was a thing to be done. And then I did it on my own. And I remember the exact date because when you join Second Life, you have a birthday. And your birthday is the day that you start your account. So Lucy's birthday, or my birthday, was April 1st, 2007.
Do you remember your first day in Second Life?
I don't remember my first day, but I do remember being a new avatar or a noob in Second Life.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So when you join Second Life, you basically get a very basic character. There's a few different options that you can pick, but there's not a whole lot of things you can pick. And then you sort of get dropped onto this welcome island. And the welcome island is sort of a generic space, and there's a lot of other avatars there. There's an orientation, if you will, because the interface, especially in 2007, was very complicated to use. There's a very steep learning curve in learning how to move around, how to change your clothes, how to do things like that. So you see a lot of people or a lot of avatars that are kind of stuck in this welcome island, and they are like, they don't know what to do, right? So they're like frozen in place, or they are walking against a wall and not moving. And so there's a lot of just like trying to figure out what to do. So in Second Life, you can also fly.
Okay.
So you can fly around the different space and you can teleport to different locations. So the real key in Second Life, kind of like in regular life, is you have to kind of build a life for yourself, and you have to build that life from the ground up. And that includes everything from how you look, your body shape, to who your friends are, who your contacts are, to the kinds of things you want to do to spend your time. So there is an extreme amount of investment involved. And you have to spend many, many hours in Second Life before there's almost any payoff.
So you're just busy setting up for several hours.
Yeah, you're setting up, and it's really frustrating. And it was a very big program too. So it's like, you need a good computer and you need a good internet connection and all of these different things that kind of interfered. But I found it really interesting, also frustrating, but interesting, and interesting enough that I went back again, after my first day, and I went back again after that. And eventually I was going all the time.
Was there a moment when you realized that you had changed from observer to participant?
That is a really good question. I think that for a long time, I sort of felt like I was just being an observer. I was like, oh, I'm a smart person, and like, I'm not really into this, all these other people. But, like a lot of things in life, you meet people and you make connections, and those connections are kind of what keep you coming back.
Sure.
And so that's a big part, I think, of why I ended up staying, is because, of the people that I met. I guess I would also say that Second Life, it's a lot like a chat room, so it's like, imagine a chat room that's attached to a video game, and that's what video games are now. But in 2007, video games weren't really like that, maybe with the exception of like World of Warcraft, which I've never played. It's a little bit like that, right? So like chat rooms, I understood. I had been in chat rooms as a teenager. So, I like to say like I give good chat, right? So like I knew how to chat with people, and there are people from all over the world, So, a lot of it was just chatting with people.
When you got started as a noob in Second Life, you developed your avatar in many different ways, right? Can you tell me the person that you built to be?
Yeah. So I think it's important first, Ben, to say that your avatar is a real investment. And Second Life has an economy. They have their own currency. That currency is called a linden.
Okay.
And you need lindens to pretty much do anything. So when you are a noob, or when you first arrive in Second Life, there are some things that you get for free. You get a little sort of basic wardrobe, basic hair, basic eyes, those kinds of things. But everything about your body is customizable. And also there's a little bit of like a status thing. about having an avatar that looks good as opposed to one that just looks like you're fresh off the boat, so to speak. So what I was invested in, a lot of what I was invested in that first initial time was kind of building an avatar that looked how I wanted to look in Second Life. At the time, you could look like anything. You know, you could take human form, you could take animal form. There were werewolves. You could be a devil, like you could be any different kinds of things. But I would say most people take a human form, and there's kind of a stereotype of that human form that people take, which is most of them take a very young, attractive kind of Baywatch, like Pamela Anderson kind of like form, you know? So a lot of the women or the female characters in Second Life, they have, you know, big boobs and tiny waists and long, beautiful hair. And a lot of the male characters are super muscled and everybody's fit and everybody's 27. That's kind of what the world, that's a big part of what the world is like.
Can you describe for me what Lucy looked like?
Yeah, so Lucy was about 6 feet tall.
Okay.
You could like measure yourself, and everything was like not on regular human proportions. So like a short person was like 6 feet tall, and then a tall person was like 8 feet tall, right?
Okay.
So Lucy was about 6 feet tall. She usually had blonde hair and brown eyes. She was kind of a Betty Page type. So a little bit of a pinup or like rockabilly style. And she wore glasses, and she had a lot of tattoos on her arms, and she was a white woman. Yeah, she was sort of like, I would say, a cross between like a rockabilly and a hipster type person. You know, that's kind of the look that I was going for with her.
I know what your avatar looked like because you sent me some pictures. Yeah, she looks pretty sassy.
Yeah, she was definitely a very sassy looking woman.
And definitely very sexy.
Yeah, I mean, I think in Second Life, sexy was the default. Like, to look normal, you had to look sexy, and most people were sexy.
Okay. And what did she do?
Oh, man.
Okay. We'll be back with Meredith's eyebrow-raising answer in a sec. And later, can you fall in love in Second Life? Lucy will tell us. And we're back to Meredith's story.
So Lucy had a couple of different things. You know, I was playing Second Life for a long time, and long enough that I sort of went through a couple of different cliques of people and a couple of different ways to live my life. And I'll also just say, I think it's important to say, in Second Life, because you need money to do things, most people try to get a job in some way.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going for. Like, what was her job?
Yeah. For female characters in Second Life, the easiest way to make money is as a prostitute.
Okay.
I think a lot of female characters, when they come in, are prostitutes at first, and I was also a prostitute.
Gosh.
But I wasn't a prostitute for very long, and I wasn't a very good prostitute. So after I stopped being a prostitute, I started being a DJ. And when you're a DJ, it's kind of like in a video game or on a cam site or something, people give you tips. So I would make tips that way, and then I would reinvest the tips into my avatar or into my house or something like that.
So Meredith, I have a few questions.
Okay.
Did it strike you, when you entered this world and pretty much the first way that you are going to be able to make any money is to prostitute yourself? Did this strike you that this is kind of just an inherently misogynistic world? And did that give you any hesitation about moving forward?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that Second Life in a lot of ways exacerbates the worst tendencies in culture. I think that it's a lot like other online spaces in that there's a ton of harassment. There are rapes. It's really dominated by men, and it's really patriarchal. And it's got that kind of like misogynistic vibe to it. So yeah, it definitely struck me as something that was distasteful, I guess. But I guess the two sort of things that mitigated that for me were, one, I had a lot of female friends in Second Life, or people who were female in Second Life, and maybe they were some other gender not in Second Life, but in Second Life they were female. It was kind of like a everybody is doing it sort of thing. But I think the other thing that sort of like made it okay is that I actually liked it.
You liked what aspect of it?
I found it very, I guess I just found it titillating to talk dirty to people. And that actually was the thing I think that made me really stay in Second Life, right? Like that was the thing that I got addicted to.
Right. Interesting. So when you were a prostitute, did you have a pimp?
No, you don't need a pimp. It's one of these things where if you have a good looking avatar, people will proposition you.
And so your clients give you lindens in exchange for virtual sex.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay. And how does that I have to ask, how does that virtual sex take place?
That is another good question, Ben. Okay, how does virtual sex work in Second? Let me give you a little sex education about sex in Second Life.
I'm ready.
Oh my gosh, you're not ready.
Okay.
Ben, you think you're ready, but you're not ready. So the way that it works is that you have basic controls over your body. You can walk, you can fly. That's pretty much it. And anything else you want to do, you have to use what they call an animation. So it's basically like you click on a piece of furniture and then it animates you to sit on that furniture, if that makes sense. Or you click on a little spot on the floor and then it animates your avatar to dance. So that's how you do most things, is through clicking on a piece of furniture or on a particular space in a room, and then your avatar will start doing whatever it is you want it to be doing. So as you might be able to guess now, there were beds and furniture, like there was sex furniture in Second Life. So, you could buy sex furniture for your house, or you could go to a sex club and they would have sex animations. And then you would join another avatar or 2 or 3 avatars on the sex animation. And then you would be performing different sex acts. Wow. So oftentimes that's how you have sex. And then you're doing that while you're narrating the sexual experience with the person, right?
Okay.
So you're talking and they're talking and you're talking dirty to each other, or you're talking about what you're doing while the avatars are engaging in the sexual activity.
Okay. And the avatars that you're watching on screen, it's a fully X-rated activity that you can see.
Yeah, you can see the X-rated activity. It's not, it's not like watching a porn movie, because it's not that good, right? It looks like...
But you get the idea.
Yeah, it looks like cartoons, kind of bad cartoons having sex.
So in this early stage in you're in your introduction to Second Life, this is how you got your lindens to buy your outfits and whatever else you needed to survive in Second Life.
Yeah, that's a big way that I got money, was to go on sex animations with people and then they would pay me.
Right. Okay. So we have this busty blonde avatar who is a prostitute come DJ, on her way to what turns out to be almost a decade, or, an in and out decade long life in Second Life. Now, I wonder, did you create her in such a way that mirrors Meredith, or is she in stark contrast to who you are in real life?
I would say that Meredith sort of became Lucy. I think that Lucy is almost like an alter ego. Maybe more accurate is to say she's like, Lucy is like an extreme version of my personality. Mm-hmm. So there were definitely things that I felt freer to do in that body that I didn't feel like I could do in my actual life. Yeah.
Were there aspects of her physical appearance that you gave her that in Second Life gave you more confidence or power in your mind?
I guess the biggest thing is that Lucy was white, and that was a pretty empowering thing in Second Life. You know, sort of like we see with social media and with just the internet in general, there was a lot of racism in Second Life. I didn't directly experience it because I was never my actual race, which is Black. I was never a Black person in Second Life. But there were a few Black characters in Second Life, and you just heard people use racial slurs, and you just saw it happening.
Wow.
The other thing I would say is that it was a lot easier in terms of like making an avatar to be white because there were more options, like more, you know, it's sort of like makeup, right? Like, so there was more skin tones, more hairdos, more eye colors, like just more stuff you could do. And the thing that's, you know, as I'm thinking about this, like the thing that's weird about all of this is that people very much wanted to look sort of like a human in the world, right? Like, so despite the fact that it's this virtual world where you could have purple skin or green skin, you know, most people had kind of like, they looked like they were a race that somebody would be out in the world. They didn't look like an alien or something like that.
Interesting. And so how did you feel about being a Black woman in real life and being a white woman in Second Life?
Most of the time it didn't bother me. You know, the time that I was in Second Life when I first joined, so 2007, 2008 is when I was really getting into it. We had a little bit of a different attitude about the internet and about being yourself on the internet. And there was a little more like play or like creativity that I think people embraced, right? That kind of like on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog kind of saying. So I guess I felt like I could be whatever I wanted to be, and it didn't necessarily have to reflect my actual human form in my everyday life. So that's sort of what I said to myself, I think, is that it didn't actually matter. I think that the longer that I played and the more deep I got into it, it did matter. But by that point, I sort of felt like I was this other person. You know, I was Lucy, and Lucy had a life. And it's going to sound kind of weird, but I felt like her life was her life, and I was living her life for her. And at that point, I just didn't feel that invested or that, you know, like it was that possible for me to change and be something that was more true to my actual body, you know.
And not to spend too much time on this, but a moment ago you said that in some ways it did matter to you. How did it matter?
I would say that, oh my head. All right. Well, here we go at this part.
If you don't mind my asking.
No, I don't mind, but it sort of takes it into a different part, which maybe you have questions about, but,
okay. Meredith's back with the answer in just a moment. And later, Lucy's featured in a hard-hitting interview in a blog post. We'll have the details. And we are back.
I ended up in a couple of relationships in Second Life. And with one of those relationships in particular, I met the person in real life eventually. But before I met the person in real life, I catfished him, basically. You know, he asked me what I looked like in real life, and I sent him a photograph of someone who looked more like Lucy did.
Oh, my. Mm-hmm.
And so that's an instance of how it really mattered. And I still feel terrible about that.
But you must have made it all right since you ended up meeting him in real life.
Yeah, it became all right. It became all right. But yeah, I perpetuated a lie for a long time.
Okay. Then how did you break the news to him that the picture that you sent was not real? That actually, I mean, there's a lot of story behind that.
So this particular person, who I will call Eddie. So Eddie was living in Europe. I used to go to a lot of music clubs, and I was a DJ, and I used to hang out a lot of places like that.
This is in Second Life.
This is in Second Life. Yeah. Okay. In Second Life.
All right.
In Second Life, Lucy spent a lot of time like at clubs listening to music and hanging out.
You can say I.
I don't know. It's so like,
we'll keep track
it's a complicated thing in Second Life as well. Like when you say I and when you say your avatar, it's just like a whole thing. But yeah, so I would go to a lot of clubs, and I one day met Eddie, and Eddie, I should say, used his real name in Second Life, which is something that a few people do, but not many. Mm-hmm. And I share that to say that Eddie was very authentic in Second Life. His avatar didn't look exactly like him, but like was a very good facsimile of him. And he was his real personality and kind of, was his real self. And we started chatting, and we got like, we just immediately fell into this kind of rapport with one another and really got on well, but also like had a kind of like flirty argumentation thing. Like we would always like, he was British, so we'd always like take the piss out of each other, basically. And that was kind of like our thing. After we got to know each other better, I was just spending all of my time in Second Life with him. There was a huge time difference. So often like he would stay up really late, or I would get up early or something like that so that we could hang out together. There were days where we spent 8 or 9 hours together just talking. I would say Eddie knew me very well. Like he didn't know Lucy. He didn't know some made up thing. He actually knew me. And through that time, Eddie knew that I had a relationship in real life. He thought that I had a boyfriend, but I was actually engaged. He knew that I had this boyfriend, and it made him really upset because he had sort of these romantic ideas that we would somehow end up together. And he had always loved the United States. He had lived here before. So he was like, you know what? You break up with your boyfriend. I'm going to come to the States and live with you.
Wow.
Yeah. I should say I resisted for a long time sending him a photograph. I just told him, I think, that I looked like Lucy, or kind of. And he was, into that too, because, he liked women with tattoos and like piercings. He was sort of into that. So eventually, he was always hounding me to send him a picture. And I really didn't know what to do because I felt like I was going to disappoint him. And so eventually I sent him a photograph, but it was a photograph of a girl I knew, who was like a friend of a friend. And she looked not exactly like Lucy, but like pretty close. She had glasses and blonde hair, and, she was kind of a hipster type girl. And he was like, wow, you're beautiful. Like, now I'm really going to come to the States. And like, you really gotta break up with that guy. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, what did I do?
Right.
What did I do? What did I do?
Oh my. And he had sent you a picture of himself.
Yeah. He actually had a picture of himself in his avatar profile. So
okay.
The way it worked in Second Life was when you clicked on a person, their name was kind of floating above their head. So you knew everybody's name. And then when you clicked on them, you got information about them.
Okay.
And so you sort of had a little profile where you could see some information. And one of the things you could fill in was like real life or first life, right? Which they sometimes called it. And in his first life, he had a real picture of himself. So it was just there. And
it was an actual real picture of himself.
Yeah, it was an actual real.
Not a friend of a friend.
No, it was an actual real picture of what he actually looked like.
All right. So at this point, did you have, genuine affection for him?
I did. Yeah. We, I think we fell in love, which sounds crazy, but we did.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, you're interacting, and you could maybe question whether or not he truly fell in love because, he really had no idea what you truly looked like. So you've got a little conundrum.
Yeah. I mean, I lied to him.
Yeah.
And, like I said, we had sort of this like antagonistic, like fiery relationship. And we would get into fights all the time. And then like, you know, I wouldn't talk to him for 2 days. And then I would come back and it would be 9 hours of hanging out together. And like, we'd have these stupid debates all the time. And we'd always have the same ones, right? And then he was always so upset with me for not leaving this boyfriend that I had. And I would be like, well, I live with him. And he's like, you can get another apartment, you know? And I'd be like, well, you know, we've got this and that. He's like, you can throw it all away. He was very much a person, he was very spontaneous.
Well, Meredith, you must have had some real internal conflict because you're falling in love with somebody in Second Life, and in First Life, you are engaged to be married.
Yeah, I did. In fact, I had my wedding.
In First Life.
And I had my First Life wedding during this time.
Wow.
And I never told Eddie that I actually got married to this person. You know, I guess I sort of rationalized it by saying this is just a game, or even though I was spending hours and hours with it, even though I was keeping it secret from everyone that I knew. So even though it had all of the sort of trappings of being something that was serious, I still sort of like rationalized it by saying, oh, this is not real, right? Like none of this is real.
Yeah, it's just a game.
It's just a game. It's just pixels.
Just pixels.
Yeah.
That's great. It's a good title for this episode. It's just pixels.
Yeah, you can have that one for free.
Okay, thanks.
No charge, Ben.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
So take me to the point where you decided that you had to, you know, come clean with Eddie about your true appearance.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, we were just sort of in a tug of war, I would say. And Eddie was very serious about me. And I really didn't know what to do. You know, during this time, you get very caught up, and it's kind of like real life. You know, you get caught up in these routines. So there were these friends that I would see, and because they lived in Austria or Brazil, right, there were only certain hours of the day that they would be on. So I would feel like I had to be on. And I say that because like, I tried so many times to stop and to quit. And I just couldn't, I just couldn't. And so there was one day, and I remember we were sitting on the beach. There were a lot of beaches in Second Life. It was like everywhere was like the perfect Tahiti beach, right? Like,
sounds great.
Everybody just built their beautiful, and you could just lounge there, and everyone had bikinis and looked perfect in bikinis, and like, all the men had washboard stomachs, and it was just like, great, wonderful place and time. I remember one day we were sitting on the beach, and, I don't remember exactly what he said, but he just said something to me that made me feel like I couldn't live this lie with him anymore. And so I was like, Eddie, there's something I have to tell you. And he was like, what? And I just sent him a real picture of myself. And that's what I said to him. I like sent it through the chat. And he was like, who's this? And I was like, that's actually what I look like.
Wow.
And I also am married, and I can't lie to you anymore.
Gosh, what a moment. I mean, I can still hear the emotion in your voice today, and it's been so many years.
Yeah, it was really upsetting.
Yeah.
I know it sounds foolish, but
I don't think so.
We had real feelings for each other, and I had lied to him. And I didn't know how to tell the truth. So I just like ripped it off like a Band-Aid. And and he got really angry, which I knew he would because he has a temper. And so he was just like, fuck you. He told me I was beautiful, like my actual self, but he was like, fuck you, how dare you? And then he was just gone.
Oh my God. You must have been crestfallen.
Yeah. When you log off, you just disappear. So he just disappeared. And he was gone. And, at that point, I knew his real name, but I didn't know how to really get in touch with him. So, so he was just gone.
You must have been just crushed.
Yeah.
I can't imagine.
You know, there were a lot of days like where something sad would happen in Second Life and I would get upset. And, you know, how do you explain that to your spouse? That like you're sitting there in the computer and, you know, they walk in, you shut the computer and you're crying and they're like, what's wrong? And you're like, oh, I just read a really sad story on CNN. Right? Or, you know.
And your husband at that point, he didn't have any idea at this moment about this entire other life you were experiencing.
Yeah, I hid pretty much everything from him. He knew that I was in Second Life. He knew that I had an avatar. And he knew that when he worked late, I sometimes liked to go in and chat with my friends and that I had, you know, a friend in Chile. And, you know, he knew a couple of little things like that. But he didn't know that I had relationships, like romantic relationships. And he certainly didn't know about Eddie or any of that. Not at all.
And so did you manage to patch things up with Eddie eventually?
Yeah. So, you know, when it's a little hard to remember the specifics now, but I probably took a little bit of a break after that and then quickly went back into Second Life, you know, and I know I had a couple of other relationships with people, a couple of other romantic relationships, none of which were as intense as the one with Eddie. And then, you know, one day I was in there and he was in there too. And you had a, you know, you could kind of like search and see who was online, or you could, if you knew somebody by name, you could look to see if they were online. And he was online and we started talking again. And that was probably in late 2008 or early 2009 that Eddie and I got back in touch with one another. And, we kind of just fell right back. We kind of picked up right where we had left off. Yeah. Oh.
Well, that must have been a really, really pleasant surprise.
Yeah. I mean, he's was a great person to talk to, and we had a real kind of like soul connection. And at that point I had relocated. I had finished graduate school and I had relocated to another city where I didn't know that many people. And so I was very grateful to have him back in my life as somebody that I was very close to and, you know, could talk for hours about nothing with. So yeah, so that was really good.
A little while ago, you said that you went to go meet him. So did you go to Europe?
I did. So,
wow.
Oh, yeah. So
how'd you pull that off?
Well, Ben, let me tell you how I pulled it off.
Okay.
I had to go to, I said he was British, so I had to go to England for work. June of 2009, I had to go to England for work. And my husband, who loves British culture and loves England, he had really wanted to go. So I tried to figure out a way so that Brian, my husband, could come on this trip, but I could also be there by myself for a certain amount of time so that I could meet Eddie. And so I basically said, oh, you know, I have this thing to do for work and I'm going to be really, really busy. So why don't you fly out a few days later and then we'll go to Paris. So, you know, you'll fly, we'll take the train down to Paris immediately and then we'll kind of circle back and come back to London. So my husband, who had a really busy job, was like, oh, you know what, that works. That's fine. You know, you got to be at this conference anyway. I don't want to be by myself.
Right. Okay. Well, that worked out. So gosh, so you and Eddie arranged a meeting. Where did you guys meet?
Oh gosh, I remember this so clearly.
Oh my, how all this turns out is just ahead. And we are back.
So I came into London. I came into King's Cross.
The train station in North London.
Yeah. And he met me at the train station. And I remember I had this gigantic suitcase because I am a terrible packer and I always pack like 4 times more than I need. And so he was like, he takes my suitcase and is trying to help me navigate these kind of, very full London streets that are windy and small and with this giant suitcase. And we just went to a bar and sat down and sort of like looked at each other in disbelief for probably about 15 minutes.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
So how long had you known each other in Second Life up until this point?
We had met more than 2 years before that.
Okay, wow. So this is a culmination of, of a very established relationship.
Yeah. I mean, it's strange if you've ever met somebody from online, it's strange a little bit, even if it's just like somebody you've only emailed, right? But when you've had a whole relationship with someone and you know them so intimately and yet you've never been in their physical presence, that's a very mind-blowing experience.
It must have been. So how long did you hang out at this bar?
I think I hung out with him that entire day. At a certain point, I had to drop my suitcase off at my hotel. I didn't stay in his apartment, but we did hang out that day, and we hung out till like the wee hours of the morning. We ended up at this dance club, and I hung out with him the next day also. He sort of that day took me around to some places that he liked, kind of his stomping grounds. And we just hung out and drank and got drunk. And
so you guys got along just as well in person as you did online?
Yeah, I would say we even got along better in person than we did online.
Amazing.
Yeah, we had a lot of chemistry for sure.
Did Eddie have a relationship?
He was kind of a player.
Okay.
He got a lot of tail, as they say.
Okay.
But at the time, he was not dating anybody, no.
What did you guys resolve to do, or, what happened?
Yeah, so what happened was we basically spent a couple of days hanging out. There was a lot of chemistry and a lot of sexual tension between us, but nothing happened. We didn't even kiss, actually. I tried to kiss him at a certain point, and he said no. He said, I want to, but you're married. And when I think back about that, I have so much respect for him because, he didn't have to put the brakes on, but he did, and I was pretty devastated. The whole thing was devastating. Like, it was to see him and to feel attracted to him, but not do anything about it. And then my husband was on a plane, we sort of left it at that. And, at this point he had my real contact information, my real name and email address. And he knew I was going to Paris. So, my husband arrived and we got on the Channel and we went to Paris. And that was it for that chapter of the story, that I just went to Paris with my husband.
Gosh. Yeah.
Oh,
what an experience.
Yeah. And then actually I had a terrible time in Paris. I was so emotional.
Must have been a jumble of nerves.
Yeah. So nervous, so sad. So I was just having so many different emotions and I couldn't have a good time. I had a terrible time. It was a terrible trip. And we were there for, 5 or 6 days. And then came back and did a couple of days in London on the other side, and then came back to the States. And then when I got back to the States, I told my husband about Eddie.
And you told him that you had seen him in London.
Yeah, I told him that I had met a man online. I did not say it was in Second Life. That I had met up with him in London and that nothing had happened, but that I cared about him deeply.
Wow. How did your husband take it?
He was really angry and really hurt. And he he sort of demanded that we go to couples therapy, and then demanded that I never speak to Eddie again. You know, he kind of put his foot down and was like, "That's it. You know, no more. I don't want you talking to this person anymore."
Yeah. And did you comply?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Gosh, it still hurts.
Yeah. You know, Eddie and I were not in touch for a good while after that. I remember I wrote him this very long love letter, or sort of goodbye letter. I still have it. I know it's in my email. I still have it. And I just sort of wrote out everything that I was feeling. And I told him I needed some time away, that I had to work on my marriage. I had to be sort of dedicated to that, and that I couldn't talk to him. You know, he wrote me something back, you know, equally heartfelt, and we were out of each other's lives.
To this day?
No.
Not to this day. Okay.
Not to this day. Not to this day.
But for a while.
For a while. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for a while.
And then in the meantime, were you still active in Second Life, or did that go by the wayside with Eddie?
I'm trying to think. Once that happened, I really curtailed my time being in there. You know, and we were in couples counseling too, which we had started late that summer. So say August of 2009. I don't think I was going while I was still in counseling. And then, you know, I definitely was like, by 2010, I was not going in anymore. Until I went in again. But I would say that I took about, you know, a year, maybe a year and a half, where I wasn't going in at all. From the end of 2009, early 2010, until the day that Amy Winehouse died in 2011. And the only reason I remember it that way is because I really liked Amy Winehouse, and I remember it was a July, and it was a very, very, very hot day. And so it was one of those days where you're just like, oh, I can't do anything. So I remember I went up to my bedroom where the only air conditioning in the apartment was, and I was sitting there and feeling like, oh, this is so bad that, you know, the singer that I like died. And I just opened up my laptop and I was like, I'm going to go on Second Life.
There you go. Okay.
And I went back, and then I was right back.
Find a little solace. You know, funny thing, Meredith, I remember the moment that I heard about Amy Winehouse's death too. I was coming out of the subway in Washington, D.C. Hot day. Yeah. And I just remember that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just, you know, I was like, I'm sure that there's going to be some people I know who are still hanging out. And I think a lot of people have a vexed relationship with Second Life. Mm-hmm. So they come in and out and in and out. And they swear it off, and then they always come back.
Wow. So you saw your old pals there.
I did, but I also I sort of made a new group of friends.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's what I did.
And you went back to your gig as a DJ?
Yeah, and I started DJing. Actually, in the second phase, my second phase of Second Life is when that sort of DJ career really took off.
Okay.
So Second Life evolved a lot. You can imagine the technology between 2007 and 2011 had taken leaps and bounds. It had gotten a lot better.
For sure.
So you could just do a lot more stuff. The avatars looked better. The technology was better. Internet speeds were faster. So that brought a lot of new capabilities into the world.
Wow.
And so it was like a better world.
Right. Okay.
And so, you know, I sort of, I started getting into trivia at that point.
Okay.
And I was like writing trivia questions, sort of like, you know, bar trivia, if you've ever done that. So there was trivia and there was DJing, and I was just hanging out.
Wow.
And yeah,
you sent me a picture of Lucy at Club Velvet.
I did,
right?
yeah. So
yeah, you're wearing tight blue jeans, your midriff is showing, your blonde hair is pulled back, looking pretty good.
yeah, so you stand there and there's some dance animations and you do these dumb dance animations and people are making jokes and there were a lot of costume parties in Second Life. So for holidays, people would dress up like bunnies on Easter or whatever it was, like presents on Christmas Day. I would say in that second phase I was still spending a lot of time there, but because I had a real job at that point, I was not spending, my entire day there.
Yeah.
But I often stayed up late. There were a lot of indie rock clubs and burlesque clubs too. I would go to those and sometimes the shows wouldn't get started till 11 at night and my husband would go to bed and I'd be like, oh, I'm just going to finish up a couple of things. And then I'd be up till 2 a.m.
Wow. Hanging out at burlesque clubs.
Hanging out at burlesque clubs. Yeah. Yeah.
In the picture of Lucy at the club with her turntables behind her, she has a broccoli tip jar behind her. What is a broccoli tip jar?
So when you are DJing, or, there were also like musical performances. So sometimes people would be playing real instruments, but streaming it through Second Life.
Okay.
So any kind of performance like that, you would have a tip jar. And the tip jar was where people clicked if they wanted to pay you lindens. And mine just happened to be in the shape of a broccoli because I love broccoli and I think it's delicious.
I see. Okay. So it's just a tip jar in the form of a broccoli.
Yes.
Okay. Got it.
People were not tipping me broccoli. They were.
That's exactly where my mind was going. Like, why? What
Yeah.
of what value is it to be tipped broccoli? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. All these pictures are posted right now so people can follow along. Okay. So there was another picture of Lucy, aka you in Second Life, at a Christmas party. And it looks like you're in an office setting. You're clearly in an office setting. Where was that?
Yeah. Again, it's just like theme parties. So someone wanted the theme party to be work Christmas party.
Okay.
So, there's a water cooler that if you click, it makes an animation where you're drunk and you like do something stupid, right? So yeah, I'm dressed as a present.
Yes.
Very scantily clad present.
Basically, all you're wearing is a bow.
Yeah. All I'm wearing is a bow. But that was kind of, I would say like looking sexy was kind of the norm, So, yeah, if you can look sexy, you know?
Yeah, sure. Why not? Okay. So I read an interesting interview with you in Second Life. It looks like it's in a Second Life magazine.
Yeah, there were a couple of blogs that people had about Second Life.
Okay, yeah. And, we learned some things, it was a very hard-hitting interview. What kind of music do you like? And your answer was like 80s music, post-punk, soul, hip-hop, indie. And we learned that you like cats. And we learned that you like flavored cream in your coffee. So very, very hard-hitting interview.
Yeah, it was, for sure, yeah.
But there was one question that I found really interesting that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay, Ben.
The interviewer asked Lucy
yeah,
what you would like to take home from Second Life into First Life if you could. Do you remember what your answer was?
I don't remember. What was my answer?
You said your spiky pink 8-inch heels, if only you could walk in them.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
So I was wondering, Meredith.
Oh my.
What was it about those heels that inspired you to just, like them so much you wanted to take them home to First Life?
Well, that's kind of an example of how Lucy helped me to be a part of myself that I couldn't be in my real life.
Yeah.
She had a figure that was, perfect. She had a job where she could wear just a bow and spiky pink heels to work. And, there would be no repercussions for that. That's really freeing. It's really freeing. So I think that there's part of me that really just liked the sassiness and the attitude. And the kind of like, fuck it, I'm just going to do this. If I want to wear, a super skin tight dress and 8-inch heels, I'm going to do it.
Heck yeah.
That's sort of what I'm like in real life, but not to that extent, not to that extreme.
Yeah, there are similarities and there are contrasts between you and Lucy, I think, right? One contrast that we haven't talked about, I think, is that, and you can tell me if I'm on the nose here, is that in Second Life, Lucy has this carefree job, as a DJ. And she's out late, having fun, spinning the tunes and collecting tips in her broccoli tip jar. And in real life, you have and I'm not saying it's not fun, but you have a very prestigious, responsible job, right?
Yeah, I have a serious job.
Yeah.
I don't know that I want to say exactly what that job is.
I'm not asking you to, and I thank you for sharing it with me so that I could ask this question. But or do you recognize that contrast, and do you feel there is a reason why you chose a profession in Second Life that is in many ways, very starkly different from your real life profession?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would say that, well, first off, in Second Life, you can't be a doctor or a lawyer or a police officer or the world doesn't need a lot of the jobs that the real world needs, right? So in Second Life, if you have a job, it's often either like a total leisure job, like a DJ or a prostitute, or there are some people who are creative people in Second Life. So maybe you're a fashion designer, but you make the clothes in Second Life. There were people like that. I have always been somebody who's really liked music, but making that my actual job is something that I would never do. I'm way too career oriented, way too responsible. I care too much about having a regular paycheck, So I think Second Life was an opportunity. It really is an opportunity to kind of have another life.
It's like a release.
Yeah, it's a pretty full life too, as full as you want it to be,
Evidently.
Yeah, I think Lucy had a pretty good life.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was as much as I felt very ashamed about it in my real life, when I was in Second Life, I felt great, it was fun.
And so there came a point when you met up with Eddie again?
Yeah. I had to be in London for work again, legitimately for work again. And this time, my husband wasn't going to come with me.
I mean, he must have suspected that you would see Eddie.
He didn't. He was a very trusting person. So he was like, yeah, okay, you got to go. That's fine. See ya. And I was gone to London for about 10 days. I should say I went to London that time with some coworkers. So there were other people there that I was spending most of my time with. Mm-hmm. But at one point, I went with a good friend and coworker of mine, and we met up with Eddie at a bar.
Had you been seeing Eddie in Second Life in advance of this trip? Or did you just, message him in First Life and say, hey, I'm coming to London?
I should say Eddie has a lot of complexity in his life. And, he went in and out of jobs. He moved around cities a little bit. He was in and out of different relationships, some of which were pretty devastating for him. So he was kind of in and out of Second Life too. He wasn't my primary focus when I went back after 2011. I would see him sometimes. I got into a couple of other relationships. I got married in Second Life.
Okay.
Eddie and I were buddies and friends. We were always attracted to each other and flirty. I just was like, hey, I'm coming to London. I'm going to be there with some people I know. Do you want to meet up one night? Because I knew, he was a real party animal. He always knew the place to go. He knew how to have a good time. So I took this one friend of mine. I lied to her about how I knew him.
How did you explain you knew this guy, this party animal in London?
I just said, oh, it's a long story. And she was kind of like, okay. So, I said, I'm going to take you out. This friend of mine really liked to have a good time too. So I was like, you're not going to believe, we're going to have the best time. This friend of mine had lived in Berlin, so she loved sort of partying in Europe. So she was like, okay, show me where the party is. Who is it?
Let's go.
So we just met up with him, and she loved him. She thought he was great.
Wow.
I had told her that he and I had this kind of, we'd had these romantic feelings for each other. And she was like, oh, I get it. Right?
Okay. Your friend's down.
So, yeah, but I never told her about the Second Life part. Many people who play Second Life feel a lot of shame around it. So we learned to construct stories about how we actually know each other. And it just didn't come up. It wasn't like he was like, hey, remember that party we were at last week? And I was like, oh, yeah, that was a great time.
Right.
Just didn't come up.
When you were visiting this time in London and seeing Eddie, did you guys get a chance to spend some alone time together and did your romance rekindle?
I would say that my romance with Eddie, every time we see each other, it gets to about a 7.5, but it never gets to a 10. So that night was just a night where I hung out with him with my friend and we had a great time. I was back in the UK the following year. I went back and forth to the UK a lot for work. And so I was back in UK the following year. That would have been 2014. And I saw him again. And that was a little bit more of an intimate situation because he took me out to a nice dinner and we went back to his apartment. But nothing romantic has ever happened. Just a lot of, being around each other that we shouldn't have done. Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, well, this is a good question. So you never, physically consummated your relationship with Eddie ever?
No, we have never done that.
Wow. You're still in touch with him today?
Eddie texted me for the first time in 5 years yesterday. It's so interesting because there are just some people in your life that you will always have a connection to, and he's one of these people. And, we've been out of touch for about 5 years at this point, for no good reason other than that life happens. His mom got sick and he was taking care of her for a while and, work gets busy and, life happens and we were just out of touch. And I heard from him, it was like kismet, I heard from him this week just as we were going to do this interview. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Did you tell him you're going to do the interview?
Oh, no. No.
Okay. We'll keep that one between us, I guess.
No. Oh my God, no.
What would he do if he... How do you think he would react if he knew you were doing this interview?
I mean, I don't think I've said anything that he wouldn't know.
Right. I see.
If there's one person in the world who knows this story, it's him. Mm-hmm. I just think he would be like, what the hell? Like, why did you decide to tell them, like, why did you decide to tell anybody about this?
Do you think he would be surprised at the depth of your emotion?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
He said to me when he texted me, we were texting and then immediately he started sending me music. That was often what we talked about was music. So he's sending me links to Spotify and I'm sending him them back. I actually recently got divorced from Brian. And so, I told him that I had gotten divorced and then we were talking a little bit about that. And he said to me, I could tell you the exact wording if I looked it up, but he was like, there was a time in my life where I really thought our future would be together. And I thought things would work out in a very different way, Yeah. And the fact that he is still saying that, and it's been 13 years at this point since I met him, 13 years.
And so what's stopping you from saying, hey, Eddie, maybe life can work out that way?
To be continued. I've always been a more responsible person than him. He's a few years older than I am, so he's in his mid to late 40s now. He always did a lot of drugs and partied and, was with a different woman every week. And despite the fact that he's a very strong romantic too. And I just felt like I couldn't handle that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's maybe not the perfect guy, but you wish he was.
I'm sorry. It's just like, all of the feelings are still there.
kind of raw, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very raw.
Did your divorce from Brian have anything to do with Second Life?
I would say, and this is, I think, like the real core of my secret and why I wanted to tell my story today, is that I think everything in my life that has happened with my marriage since I joined Second Life has been either directly or indirectly related to Second Life. And I know my husband doesn't know that because I never told him. But going in world and being this other person and learning these different sides of my personality, it really set me on a path to have different expectations for myself, you know? And they were expectations that at the end of the day, my husband was not able to meet. And, you know, we had other problems and he's got his own whole story going on, which is like maybe another episode of The Secret Room. But at the end of the day, Second Life was so formative in terms of who I am today. Counterfactuals are impossible, but like, had I not gone in, like, maybe I wouldn't be divorced, you know?
I understand what you're saying. It's maybe not directly causal, but certainly a part of your life and had a lot of influence.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you had other relationships and you were even married in Second Life. Who did you marry? If it wasn't Eddie.
I was married 3 times in Second Life.
Wow.
To get married, all you have to do is propose a partnership with another avatar, and then you pay a small fee. I think it's like 10 linden.
Uh-huh.
And then to get divorced, you just have to sort of undo that process and pay a small fee. And then when you're married, your little partner box is filled with a name, right? So somebody clicks on your avatar, they get your profile, and your profile pops up as like you're attached to another person, if that makes sense.
Did you meet any of these people in real life also?
You know, I can't even remember who the third husband was. So no, I didn't meet that person.
Okay.
I remember the other 2 though. One of which was like, you know, I think we were married for a month, like not very long.
Okay.
So my first husband in Second Life was a long relationship, and we were married for a long time. I can't remember exactly, but I want to say we were married for a year in Second Life. His name was Doug. Doug, I didn't meet in person, but I know exactly who Doug is. We got on camera a few times. We've emailed like casually, like, hey, how are you doing in the years since? Our split up was very amicable. He just decided he wanted to stop playing for a while, but he also went back. When I was married to Doug, yeah, we just had a relationship, you know. Doug was very rich. He was very rich in real life and very rich in Second Life also. So he was a little bit of a sugar daddy.
Okay. In First Life or in Second Life?
In Second Life.
Okay.
Doug was my Second Life sugar daddy a little bit.
He was doling out the lindens.
And regularly, like once a month, he would give me an allowance.
Wow.
He wanted me to look as hot as possible because I was his, right? So he was like, upgrade your skin and upgrade your hair and, you know, get this outfit and get this outfit. He was a very fashionable man. So he would give me like 20,000 linden, which was maybe, I don't know, $30.
Okay.
But like, you know, I wasn't into spending money if I didn't have to in Second Life. So I was like, sure, I'll take your money. And then like, you know, that money went pretty far. So yeah, we had a really nice house and like
sounds great,
hot tub and a plane and like, you know, all this stuff.
Well, who needs Eddie with all that?
Right. Yeah. Oh wow.
Can you convert linden to real currency?
I'm pretty sure you can probably cash out, but I wasn't involved. There was like a stock market in Second Life too.
Wow.
I don't know enough about that part, but people.
Okay, it's a whole thing though.
But because you would buy like clothing and, you know, other things, accoutrement in Second Life, like the people who were making that stuff would get paid and then they had to convert that to money. So I'm sure that Linden Labs, the company that makes Second Life, took like a tax on it. But yeah. You can make real money in Second Life.
Really? That's amazing.
Yeah. You didn't need a lot of money to have a good life. Like, you know, $10 a month would be like fine. It goes a long way. But you could spend as much money as you wanted to. It's kind of like regular life, you know. There were luxury Second Life things.
I'm sure. Did you like being Lucy?
I loved being Lucy.
Yeah.
I think, you know, if you talk to most people who play Second Life, they have an ambivalent relationship with it, partially due to the stigma and partially due to the conflicts that erupt between your real life and your Second Life. And then Second Life has its own drama.
I'll say.
There's always drama, right? There was a guy who staged his own death, and then he came back as another avatar. There were swindlers and hustlers and creeps and all kinds of stuff like that. So people were always like, oh, I should just quit. And I definitely felt that way. I felt like, oh, why am I doing this? I should just quit. Like, think of what I could be doing with these hours that I'm spending. Like,
and then at one point you did, right? How did you end Lucy?
You know, I think like a lot of things, I just, there's like a complicated way to answer this question.
Okay.
That's like the more honest way that touches upon a whole other bunch of other stuff in my life and other secrets.
Okay.
I don't know if I want to talk about. But the simple way to say it is that the things that Second Life was doing for me and the sort of holes in my life that it was filling, I found other ways to fulfill them. I was also, you know, getting busier with work and getting more established in the new place I was living, and I had more friends and I had more stuff to do. Another big part of it, honestly, was that I had a crappy computer, and when Second Life would do a lot of upgrades on the software, at a certain point it didn't run on the computer that I had.
Oh gosh.
And so I was like, okay, well, guess that's it. You know, I would go, if I went in and it would crash my computer after maybe 10 minutes. That was actually a really big part of it, but also just that my life got, you know, I stopped needing it the same way that I had before.
In your secret, you said you killed her, and I wondered if that was referencing some kind of dramatic close.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So, I mean, I tried to quit going into Second Life many times cold turkey and failed. I tried like changing my password to a bunch of gibberish that I just like banged on the computer keyboard, and then I didn't know my password, and then I found some way to get around it, right? Eventually, after, you know, my computer wasn't really working in Second Life very well around about 2017. And by that point, I was going in a lot more sporadically anyway. I was basically going in to see one female friend who is still a friend of mine and lives in another country. Yeah, so I got a new computer and I could go in again and it was working, but I was just like, you know, I don't want to be spending my time doing this anymore. I felt like I had kind of outgrown it. But I also knew myself well enough that if something in my life got, you know, hard, or if I could just be bored and one day I would want to go back. So I knew the only thing that I could do was to delete my account.
Wow. That's hardcore.
You know, Ben, like, it really was, because I had spent so many hours in Second Life, and Lucy had a whole life. You know, she had a list of friends. You had like a friend list, right? So, you know, I've got 50 different names on there, and I've got stuff that I had accumulated, you know, like outfits and furniture and, you know, all kinds of stuff that I had accumulated. And it just meant that if I ever went back, I would have none of that. You know, it was all gone. And that was a lot of time and money. But I just knew that that's what I had to do to ensure that I would never go back. And so, you know, one day I like booted up my computer and I went to the Linden Labs website, because you could do it from the website. You didn't have to actually log into the game. And I just had delete account and I deleted it.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Must have been a very emotional moment.
Yeah, I felt like immediately felt regret.
Yeah, like, oh no, come back.
Yeah, and if I'm honest with you, Ben, I still feel regret about it.
I mean, I feel sad that she's gone.
Yeah, she was a part of me.
Yeah.
As like, crazy as it might sound, like it was like losing a limb. I mean, I don't want to say that because I haven't lost a limb, I'm sure losing a limb is very tragic and difficult in ways that this wasn't, but yeah, it was like I lost a little piece of my soul.
I understand. Do you have any pictures of Lucy in your house?
Oh, no. And I actually regret that too. Like there was this one time where I'll just say it, like I had a really hot avatar.
Yes, you did.
I was really good I think this is true of me in real life, that I'm really into fashion, and I was into fashion in Second Life. So I was really good at finding like interesting designers and like good hair places, and I could put together like a really good avatar. And so at one point, this photographer approached me because I was always at this club DJing, and he was like, "Hey, your avatar is super hot. We're making a pinup calendar. Do you want to model for it?" Mm-hmm. So I was like, sure, of course I want to model for it. And so I ended up taking this photographer ended up taking these modeling pictures. And there were a couple of other times that I modeled too. But some of those pictures are really beautiful. And people were doing like really cool artistic stuff in Second Life. And I sometimes think about how beautiful that avatar was and how cool that picture was. And like, it sounds silly, but I wish I had that picture,
Yeah. But you have other images of her.
Yeah. I think I'd rather not have people ask me what it is.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you think back to Lucy right now, what kind of feelings do you have?
Lucy is a little bit like a long lost friend, right? Like a college friend that you were super tight with. And then maybe like that friend passed away, or you completely lost touch with them and you can't find them anymore, So as much as I feel some shame about the things that Second Life made me do or the things that I did, I feel a real love for Lucy. That sounds so strange because Lucy is me, and yeah, I just feel like in mourning a little bit. And thinking about this interview and this story that we were going to talk this week, I've just been thinking a lot about Lucy, and she was a good person. She had a good life, So I'm glad that she had a good life, or I had a good life as her. But I also feel sad about her life.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll always miss her.
Yeah. I will miss her. I don't think about it that much these days, but when I do, I miss her.
And do you ever think you'll see Eddie again?
I think we'll probably see each other. We might Zoom. In this pandemic situation, we talked about maybe Zooming. And if we can travel, I'm sure if I were in his city or he were in mine, we'd try to see each other.
For sure.
But he's also a very unreliable person.
Okay.
And, and forgetful, and he's got a lot of bad qualities too. So, but I think we'll see each other.
Well, Meredith, I want to thank you so much for sharing this amazing story.
Yeah, well, thank you, Ben, for having me and listening to it.
Oh yeah, no, it's just really astounding, and as promised, you did open up a world to us that I think many of us just, have no idea exists.
Yeah, and there's still people who are having the experiences like mine to this day, despite the fact that Second Life is not a technology that people think about very much anymore. It's still a whole world unto itself.
The roller coaster ride that Meredith took through emotional reality was at times breathtaking and at times crushing. There is irony that with the fullness of time, a distorted sense of reality would lead to the ineluctable collision of Meredith's first and second worlds. And the simple act of depressing delete to kill her alter ego belies the fortitude it required. For she knew that existing in-world would be palatable nevermore. So in Lucy's death rises Meredith's life. She is free from a decade-long addiction to right her wrongs and to live and to love in the first world. Meredith shared pictures from both worlds. See Meredith and Eddie in real life. You can also see Lucy dressed in nothing but a bow, and also at her DJ gig with her famous broccoli tip jar. They're waiting for you on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Search at Secret Room Pod. And there's more.
On the next Secret Room Unlocked, we'll answer questions still out there.
How did Eddie take the news when he found out that you had killed Lucy?
Oh my gosh.
And remember our producer, Sashel Brooks, who joined Ben in episode 126, The Clan? Well, she's going to join me with her own insight.
That's right. I had a very different experience in Second Life, and I am going to spill the tea.
I'm Susie Lark. Join me in 1 week for The Secret Room Unlocked. It's yours when you support at patreon.com/secretroom.
And another way to support the podcast is to support our sponsors. Check their exclusive listener offers on our website, secretroompod.com. Your support, however you contribute, makes your favorite indie podcast that could possible, and you have my gratitude. This week's Pod Squad: Susie Lark, producer; Luna Patel, story development. Thanks also to Alessandro Nigro and the Street Secret team. Marco is the sound engineer, and our music is by Breakmaster Cylinder. Yeah. Do you have a munificent secret to share? Whoa! You might have to trim it down, but send it anyway. There's a form at secretroompod.com. Click submit. Join me again in just 2 weeks when this podcast will fill your personal space with a secret so close to someone else's heart, your eyes will widen with intrigue. So don't stray. This podcast is always here for you.
This is The Secret Room, a podcast about the stories no one ever tells.
That's great.
All right, now you got it twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Ben Ham. Could I say pot on with Lucy?
Oh, God. Okay.
She can have a quick reprise.
Oh, my gosh.
And this will be Lucy's last hurrah, maybe.
Okay.
Pot on, Lucy.
Pot on, Ben.
Aw.
Aw.
That kind of touched me.